Now we started off this section talking about these IP addresses being private. These IP addresses are not accessible from the public internet. But how would you go about creating public IP address? What we're going to do is we're going to go into this plus sign here for new, and we're going to say public IP. Okay, we'll search for that. And right off the bat, we've got this concept of public IP address offered by Microsoft. So let's choose that. I'm going to say create. So we can now choose to create a public IP address. I'm going to call this AZSJD new public IP 3. Now, we do have options in terms of SKU and in terms of pricing. Okay. Public IP SKU must match the SKU of the load balancer. So if you're using a standard load balancer, you get a standard public IP, and a basic load balancer gets a basic. Microsoft does support IPv6 at the load balancer level. The virtual machines and other resources do not support IPv4, but if you IPv6. But if you do need to use that, then you're going to have to put a load balancer in front in order for IPv6 to travel into a virtual machine, because that will convert that to an IPv4 communication. We get the choices between a dynamic IP address and a static IP address. Now, a static IP address is an IP address that never changes, and this is good for when you want to use that IP address in some kind of setting, like a firewall that needs to be opened up, or a DNS registration when you are create a custom domain name and you need that IP address to live within the DNS system. So you only really need a static IP address if you need to then register that somewhere. The regular domain name system will take care of a dynamic IP address. Basically, what we're going to do is give this IP address a name, and then we can use that name everywhere that we need to. We can choose a connection opening timeout. So basically 4 minutes is the default, so that clients do not need to use keep alive messages in order to keep the communication open. This is where you give it a fully qualified name. Since we're creating this public IP address in Central US region, then the fully qualified domain name is something.centralus.cloudapp.azure.com, and so I'm going to say my new public IP. Probably a terrible domain name, but this is the one that you're going to get for free. Again, you can map this to a custom domain name if you need to, using your domain name register. A CNAME record would be able to map your custom domain into something like this, or you can use Azure's DNS system, which we'll talk about in a bit as well. Now, we're going to get an IPv4 for free, but do we want an IPv6 version? We can go ahead and create that if we wanted it. I'm going to go in my subscription. I'm going to put this into my new resource group 200. And I've been putting this stuff into Canada, so I'm going to move this to Canada East as well. And I'm going to say create. So that's going to go off and get me a public IP address in Canada East region.